thank you guys for coming. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you for being here and to interview me.
Oh, well, thank you for coming. It's very exciting for me and for everybody here, I'm sure. A little introduction again. I don't know if you heard some of the past ones. My name is Jessie. I'm with shoptoadrop.com. And, but this isn't about me. We're here today to talk to John Kassir, who is the iconic crypt keeper, as well as many other things he's done.
Thank you.
Awesome voice.
Yeah. Some people would say I do some awesome things with my body.
Knowing you from the cartoons, this is all very like
shocking
for me.
Perfect.
So I have a couple questions to start, and again, this is going to be a pretty open Q&A, so if people want to come up and ask questions, please feel free to do so. There's the microphone in the center. So I just wanted to know, like, what is it like for you to be able to come to these sort of events and be with your fans?
Oh, I love coming to, especially, well, I mean, it's a Comic-Con, so it has a variety of things that you know, that I've worked on, but also, you know, people. I mean, I think a lot of people assume you're in Hollywood, you see and meet everybody. And I've 35 years as an actor, I've met a lot of people. I've met a lot of my own. I think my first television pilot was with Sid Caesar. So, I mean, that's not how old I am, that's how old he was at the time. You know, it was kind of like a Broadway Danny Rose, where I was the young comic hanging out with the older comics and that kind of stuff. And I mean, that was amazing for me because as a small kid, you know, I saw black and white shows of Sid Caesar on TV, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. And that was the original Saturday Night Live. So, you know, so I get to, it's cool for me, first of all, to be a fanboy too, and show up and see some of the people and meet some of the people and hang with some of the people that, you know, I've admired their work for many years. But also I'm a horror fan too. Grew up reading the Tales from the Crypt comic books and loving those, so you can imagine how excited I was when they turned it into a series, and how much more excited I was when they actually hired me to play the Crypt Keeper. I think my first favorites were maybe the Universal horror monster movies. I loved all the, you know, I mean, Boris Karloff was unbelievable, and the creature faces that they created for Ian Lon Chaney Jr. and you know, Dracula. I mean, I still think my favorite comedy is Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein. So, you know, I love that. So this is a good time for me, and I'm certainly appreciative to have, you know, a project. In 35 years, I've done so many TV series and so many films and plays, and, you know, plays that maybe only this many people saw on any given night, and all these different things that you know, are great at the moment, but people don't remember. And then to have one project like Tales from the Crypt that's, you know, has such a great fan base, including myself, to be able to share that with fans is really exciting for me. So that's a good question, because I really enjoy coming to these. And I appreciate that people buy photographs and that kind of thing. It pays for me to be able to come here and spend time with fans and do this. And even some of the conventions where they have parties and stuff, you can get to party with people. It's a good time. But, you know, that's that. Thank you.
You did mention the comics, and we talked like very briefly about them yesterday, but like I'm not super familiar with them. Like I said, I'm much more familiar with kind of like the comics, and then this is actually a funny story. The one time I saw when I was little, Tales from the Crypt Keeper, Tales from the Crypt on the guide, and I clicked enter, and it was this horribly raunchy scene happening, and my mom was like, "What the hell are you doing?" But so like I wondered sort of the differences between like the comic and the cartoon and the series itself and the movies.
Well, the original comic books were controversial in themselves, and the reason there are, you know, age codes and that kind of thing on the comic books are because of the EC Comics, which included Tales from the Crypt and you know, Tales from the Vault, Two-Fisted Tales, all these different comic books that were. And when I collected them, you know, my mother she was like, "What are you reading this trash?" You know, because it was very controversial. Mothers went and marched on, you know, went to Congress and tried to get them banned. And of course, their solution was to put ratings on them, like these are not for little kids. But of course, you're sitting there going, "I love a demon sitting in the corner reading a Tales from the Crypt comic book. I think it's just awesome. I used to love it too because you could order, like a 6-foot-tall Frankenstein, cut out, and then I would have in the corner of my room. I could order it in the back of the comic book. But there's a great, if you have the DVDs, any of the DVDs, nice of you to show up, young man. Did you guys come over from The Walking Dead? Did it suck? Nice you guys to come, thank you. We're just talking about the history of Tales from the Crypt and how it went from comic book to TV show. But the original, nobody loves that on me.
I'll be back.
Go check out The Walking Dead. We have cameras. I don't know why they would schedule that at the same time. But on the first season DVDs of the episodes of the first season, there's a great behind the scenes that takes you through the whole history of how the comic books influenced all of horror today. In fact, when they went to shoot Tales from the Crypt, you'll see, if you pick up one of the comic books for an episode, all the episodes were based on, except for the very last episode, the one that Bill Cobb did, the animated one, Three Pigs. All the other episodes are based on comic book, or one of the comic book stories. And if you picked up one of the comics and then you looked at the episode, you'd see that some of the shots are even framed the same as what they were on the comic book. Like if there was a guy in the foreground looking over his shoulder like this, and in the background somebody was dying, they tried to capture that in some of the shots when they were shooting the show. So it's kind of cool that you go and watch any kind of horror these days, and they borrow a lot of what you see, the shredded type of people in Walking Dead and the zombies that you saw, and these kind of things were all from those great artists that drew for these comic books. Some of them have come up to me over the years that are still alive, and said, they never would have imagined the Crypt Keeper to sound so great, and they were really, which is probably the biggest compliment that I could have got, that the guys who were creating these characters, or at least drawing these characters, appreciated what I did to help bring it to life, and of course what Kevin Yeager did in creating the Crypt Keeper.
Who created the Crypt Keeper? Could you say that again?
I'm sorry, Kevin Yeager.
Kevin Yeager?
Kevin Yeager also made Chucky, and he designed
yeah.
Krueger, and he's a wonderful director, creature maker, wonderful artist, does special effects. He does all the effects these days for Bones. He makes all those great corpses and stuff, But
I didn't mean to interrupt you, sorry.
yeah, not at all. In fact, a little thing some people don't know is that the Crypt Keeper has Chucky's eyes. When they originally picked up Tales from the Crypt for HBO, they didn't give us a big budget to start with. So Kevin was using spare parts out of his studio, and so we put Chucky eyes in the Crypt Keeper. And he loved it so much he kept them. They wound up for the next groupings of incantations of the Crypt Keeper. He kept those eyes. He spruced him up once we got a bigger budget after the show became a hit. If you watch the first season, I had to talk slower and more ominously. That's only because the mouth didn't move very quickly. He didn't have enough servos, money to put the money into making the mouth work really well, So that's kind of a fun little thing. But it's got, it has quite a history, and then of course they did try to make a movie that was kind of like a creep show movie of 3 episodes, stories in an anthology with Sir Ralph Richardson playing the Crypt Keeper, which was kind of fun and paunch, not very scary, but fun, and had like Patrick McEwen and some other, what was it, Joan Collins? I think Joan Collins was in one of the episodes or something in that original. I was in the 70s. But I think definitely the partners, and at the time when Tales from the Crypt was being made with HBO, and my bosses were the biggest producers and directors in the business. You were talking about Joel Silver, who did all the Lethal Weapon movies and Matrix movies and Die Hard movies, producing, and Richard Donner, who directed the Lethal Weapon movies and Superman, and all that, and worked with Zemeckis, who we know made Forrest Gump and Back to the Future and all these wonderful movies. And, you know, he was essential because of the great opening. He was fooling around with so many great effects that were cutting-edge effects that wound up getting to be used in Tales from the Crypt that you would not normally be able to afford for a TV series. Including that opening, which starts out on a set that goes into a model, which goes into another set in the lobby, which then goes down into a CGI staircase into another set. So it's kind of but you can't tell. That's how good it was, and that's pretty cool for that time. 1988, I think they made that, and of course Danny Elfman did the music for it. And then the other producers were Walter Hill, 48 Hours, and Dreamscape, and all those great movies, who directed some of my favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt, including The Man Who Was Death, and Chop Poker, and some other good ones. And David Giler, who was a producer of Alien. So, I mean, these are the guys that were making this show. So, if they didn't love it so much and hadn't got the rights to the, you know, the comic books from William Gaines, and William Gaines was so on board with this. I got to meet him before he died. He was such a wonderful man. He had invited us to his house, and he had a library of horror material, including comic books and scripts from horror movies and all this great stuff. It was like his whole place was all just bookshelves. And come on, I'm not that funny. And so that was really great. Now, of course, people are always asking, you know, why isn't Tales from the Crypt being made today? Well, one of the reasons why we didn't make more after making 93 episodes was, you know, getting the rights back and paying for it and getting a network to put that much money into it is an expensive show to do. And now, of course, with horror being so mainstream and the success of The Walking Dead and the success of American Horror Story, of course, the continued success of Tales from the Crypt, you know, people would like to see it back, but now, of course, you know, they don't have the rights anymore. The rights were sold to TNT in the meantime with M. Night Shyamalan, who's going to do their own version of Tales from the Crypt. And of course, they don't have the rights to the Crypt Keeper, so it's kind of like a catch-22. It's like, well, we have the rights to the Crypt Keeper, but we don't have the rights to Tales from the Crypt. And they have the rights to Tales from the Crypt, but they don't have the Crypt Keeper. It's like, so they'll do something different with it, as we, you know, see happen in so many different franchises. You know, when they remade Twilight Zone, obviously they didn't have Rod Serling anymore, and these kind of things. And you hope it's good. There's always four scenarios. They make something really good, and I'm included. They make something really good. They make something really sucky, and they make something really sucky, and I'm included, which of course is the worst case scenario. So, you know, what'll happen, I don't know, but I'm sure, I mean, you know, there's no way that they can, at this point, get the rights to that Crypt Keeper, which is sad, because he's kind of became the face of the franchise. But we'll always have those 93 episodes and 3 movies and a cartoon series and a game show and a Christmas album.
Pinball.
There was a game show and a Christmas album?
Is that?
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay, go ahead.
There was a Christmas album and a game show?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, the game show was kind of fun, and the Crypt Keeper's head would appear, you know,
Oh, yeah, I remember
on the
that.
screen. And the kids would have brain challenges and also physical challenges, and they were on a blue screen, and it looked like they were like crawling across an abyss and
Good.
stuff like that. They shot it in Florida, and I would just record my stuff in LA, and they would, you know,
Wow.
put the head in later and stuff, you know.
I gotta check that
It
out.
was actually really well received. Tales from the Crypt Keeper's Haunted House is what that was called.
Oh.
And I kept trying to get them to do a live action version of Tales from the Crypt for kids, but they thought it would be too scary. And then, of course, apparently it came out with Goosebumps. I was like, see, I told you. But, you know, the cartoon was really well done, too. But, you know, so that'll be around. And then, who knows, maybe this one will run its course, and then they'll give the rights back to Joel Silver and his guys, and we'll do another one with that. It's been amazing for me to be involved in it. And as a voice, I mean, as a on-camera actor, I mean, at the time I was doing a series for HBO called First and 10. Future Crypt Keeper. We'll teach him later. But they, I was doing that series, and that was HBO's first series about a football team, and I played a Bulgarian field goal kicker. He was a soccer player from Bulgaria who would kick 60-yard field goals. And the show starred Chris Maloney as a quarterback and had Delta Burke in her first series. She was the owner of the team, and O.J. Simpson was the general manager. Yes, I worked with O.J. for 6 years.
How was that?
No, I had no idea he'd be a murderer. Misogynistic, yes. Pot smoker, yes. But no, I didn't say that. Did I come out loud? She's not recording. But we had a good time on that show. And so they knew I did characters. I had won Star Search as a stand-up comedian back in 1980. You know, it's funny, but I think they have the one episode that I won. And they don't have all the other ones that I was on. For some reason, I don't know why they're not on there on YouTube. But I beat Sinbad in the finals. Rosie O'Donnell in the semifinals. But there was a number of other comedians who were on that show. But I wasn't really a stand-up at the time when they asked me to do the show. I was doing an off-Broadway musical about stand-up comics with Scott Bakula called Three Guys Naked from the Waist Down. Which was kind of a metaphor of how you feel in front of an audience when you're bombing, you know? And so I played this really out there kind of Andy Kaufman-ish suicidal comedian. And they saw me in the show. They said, "Hey, what do you do to Star Search?" And it was the first season. And I was like, "What's Star Search?" They go, "Oh, it's a competition show. You can go." I go, "What, as a singer?" They go, like, "No, why don't you come on as a comedian?" I go, "You know, I'm not really a stand-up. I'm playing stand-up. I'm just playing in the show." They go, "Well, you can win $100,000. I'm like, "Hey, fuck, did I tell you about my stand-up career?" And so I went on and I won. So then all of a sudden I had to come up with an act. So I started doing like voices and characters in my act. And I would do the Wizard of Oz in 2.5 minutes. It's a twisted. It's a twisted. Dorothy! Dorothy! Let me in. Come on, Toto. As mayor of the Munchkin City in the county of the land of Oz, we welcome you most really, but we gotta verify it legally. We represent the lollipop kid, the lollipop kid, the lollipop kid. That kind of stuff in my act. So they knew that I did all these voices and stuff, and they said, "Hey, we want you to come audition for Tales from the Crypt." And I was like, "Tales from the Crypt are making that into a show?" I'm like, "Yeah, awesome." I thought it would be just a, like a cult classic for, freaks like me. And, I went down to Kevin Yeager's studio where he was, making the Crypt Keeper puppet when he was doing the auditions. And I couldn't tell you exactly all the people who were there, but some people tell me even Michael Winslow had auditioned and some other people. But they had actors, actor-comedians, actor-comedian voiceover guys, and that kind of thing, all into audition. And, I saw the puppet, and I'm going, okay, I know. And the other people are sitting there reading, going, be careful what you ask for, you may get it. Yeah, exactly what I thought, right? And, they're sitting there going, this is terrible, how do you say this stuff, and I don't think they got it. I realized that this guy loves saying this stuff, which is why as I was doing it, I found myself laughing at my own jokes, him laughing at his own jokes and cackling, and I'm going, okay, he's a little bit Henny Youngman as a stand-up comedian, he's a little bit Alfred Hitchcock from Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and that kind of talking in that macabre humor, and he's a little bit Margaret Hamilton as the Wicked Witch of the West, so I was like, all of a sudden I'm doing it for Kevin Yeager, and he's like, yeah, that's good, and I'm like, and then all of a sudden I break into that laugh, and he's like, oh my God, that's good, I have to go in there, Next day he had me doing it for Joel Silver and Richard Donner in their office, and and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like in the office of Richard Donner and Joel Silver. I was like, maybe they'll put And I did it for them. They're like, great, we'll see you on the set. You know, and you don't believe it when they tell you in the room. You know, it's like, until they call your agents and make a deal, you just don't believe it because you hear that all the time. They don't hire you, you know. And, but that was 1988 when they were just starting to shoot the show. And, you know, and by 1997, when they wrapped up 93 episodes, including a season that they shot in London, you know, it was like, it was pretty awesome. It was kind of like a side job because they never really took that much of my time. I would, you know, was able to continue to do First and 10 as a series, and then I had another series called FM that I was doing. So it was great. And as I've gotten older, and they write less and less parts for you as you get older, you know, on camera, I'm not typed out as a voice actor by my age or my race, or, you know, I get to play superheroes, which I would normally not get cast on camera playing, although I did play the Atom once. And, or either whether I'm dead or alive, or even human, you know, I'm playing parts like Nico the Raccoon, you know. Right now I did the dragon, Elliot in Pete's Dragon, which will be out in August for Disney, which is really good. It's not like, if you saw the original, it was really campy and musical and cartoony and that kind of thing. This is more like E.T. as, you know, the kid's really great. It's got Robert Redford in it. It's got Bryce Dallas Howard in it, and I did all the vocal gymnastics for Elliot, the dragon, which is just really incredibly well. I think Lucas, you know, was Lucas's company.
Lucasfilm?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Did the effects for it. It's really, really good.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Suzanne, let's take this with a grain of salt, but were you also the voice of the double-headed giant in Jack the Giant Slayer?
Yes, not only the voice, but it was motion capture. So, you know,
Oh, that
I
was
had
you
all the
too?
dots all over my face and
Wow.
stuff, you know, and the weird PVC suits, you know, the bizarre cameras that come out of your helmet and look at back in your face and all that stuff, and spent 4 months shooting that. And of course, it's a two-headed giant. The other head and body of the giant is Bill Nye, not the science guy. The British actor from Underworld and Shaun of the Dead and Love Actually and Marriott Hotel and all those wonderful films. And who's an incredible actor to work with, you know, because I had to literally mirror everything Bill did, because they were using his body, his head, his left arm, and my head and right arm, you know, which is being electronically connected while we're acting. So I had to mirror everything Bill did and then act separately with my head and my right arm, and then create a language for a character that had no vocal cords. So it was like, you know, doing this thing. Bill was the only person who knew what I was saying. Everybody else was just like had to assume. He was like, no, you can't do that. It's sad, you know. And so it was pretty incredible, of course, working with such a great cast. Nicholas Hoult playing Jack, and you know, Ewan McGregor and Stanley Tucci, who was really wonderful. I mean, it was a pretty great experience for me, spending 4 months in London on their dime. You know, because London's a very expensive city, and to have a good time in London, you know, when they're paying for it, is a really good time. You know, working with great actors in a great movie, and Bryan Singer is such a wonderful director. If you get to see Apocalypse, it's really, really good. I know that some of the diehard, X-Men fans, they didn't think the storyline was that deep, but I thought that it's just one of the best fun movies I've seen in a long time. Great villain, great, and the effects are just, you know, the effects just get so much better and better all the time that they kind of blow my mind. You know, it's like people go back and look at a movie from last year and they go, oh, the effects suck on this. It's like, what are you talking about? That's incredible. It's like, yeah, but you should go see, you know, this new movie, and because the effects just get seamless. You can't tell. You can't tell what's real. I mean, that bear that was, you know, attacking Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant. I mean, you can't tell that's not a real bear. It's completely, you know, computer generated, and you're like, how do they do that? How do they do that? And they give it such personality and such wonderful, you know, such things is pretty incredible. It would be interesting to see what they may do, what they would do with a new Crypt Keeper, whether they would do it, they put me with the spots on my face, or whether they would do the puppet. I would hope they would keep the puppet, because I think one of the fun things about horror is that they still use practical effects. You know, I mean, I think that's one of the attractions of coming to these things and seeing all the great masks people have made and the effects they've done, and you know, and here you are playing with your fingers, and you know, it's like, these are all practical effects. You know, yes.
Sorry, where is the original puppet?
He's in a vault somewhere, you know. He probably has no flesh on him right now, because literally each episode they would redo all the flesh on it, you know, because it was so thin and rubbery with tear as they were working with it. And there was a guy whose job it was to repair it as we were shooting, and to put little things of glycerin in the corners to make the corner of his mouth look wet and his tears in his eyes and all that stuff. And it was really incredible. But what he looks like without it is like a clear plastic thing with the eye. You know, it looks like somebody if they pulled off their flesh, you know. And when there's, you see all these little servos and stuff in it. Sadly, the lead puppeteer, Van Snowden, who worked at Crypt Keeper, died, I'm going to say like 2.5 years ago now, from cancer. And he was a wonderful puppeteer. I mean, he did dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, and all these, you know, his credits would be about Van Snowden. You will be astonished by the things that he did, and he was the lead puppeteer. They had a whole group of puppeteers. One guy, Van would work the head and one hand. Another guy would work the hand and move the torso, and would have to breathe and that kind of thing. Two other guys had a remote control and worked this part of the face and the eyes. Another guy worked the tongue and the cheeks. And then another guy had on a head thing, and he would talk like this with the jaws, and then he would move the lips with these little toggles. Hello, I'm the Crypt Keeper. You know, yeah, work. So I would go in and record the performance, and they would watch me, and they would shoot me and that kind of stuff, so they could see how I moved, how to pretend to be the Crypt Keeper. So then they could all choreograph off of what I did and come up with their own stuff as well. And then they became so good and coordinated together over time. Oh, and then they had the feet. There was a little woman that would get in there with her feet underneath. So it'd be kind of really weird. But it was like, yeah, it looked like a bad porn. It was a really strange kind of thing the way they did it. But they were so in sync with one another that after a while, they were able to have interviews where the Crypt Keeper was interviewed live, and I'd be off camera answering the questions, and they'd be looking at me to watch what I was going to say, especially the guy with the mouth, and he'd be like, you know, and he'd be like that far behind me, but you wouldn't notice. You, as a human eye, wouldn't catch it. That's how good they were. In fact, when we did the Horror Hall of Fame Awards, it was Robert Englund was the on-stage host, and I was in the back, and they keep cutting to me, making comments, you know, interviewing the guests and stuff like that. You know, we're like, and now let's go to something really scary, a commercial. You know, stuff like that. And I was, you know, and they were watching me and following me the whole time. It was pretty incredible. Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, I have a question in regards to a different character you played as.
Sure.
You were Shep in the Three Stooges movie.
Yeah, that was one of the warmest. Yeah, go ahead.
He was my favorite character in the movie.
Oh,
He portrayed
thanks.
so well.
Thank
And I'm
you.
a Stooges fan, so I want to say thank you. My question is, how did you prepare to be Shep? Because you did an amazing job as Shep.
Thank you, thank you. You know, I mean, I loved Shep as a kid. I mean, we were all attracted to Curly because he was so childlike, you know, he was so great, you know, and he was always the one that was beat on all the time, you know, and I originally was asked to come in and audition for Larry, because if you've seen pictures of me as a younger man, I had all this crazy wild hair, you know, that looked like Mo had torn some of it out of it, you know, and come on, fellas, I didn't mean it. So I'd go in there and I went to audition for Larry, and the casting directors knew my work, and they knew that I came from physical comedy and I was a stage actor and did a lot of street performing and fun things that not all actors can do. So they knew that I would be able to do, you know, the physical bits and that kind of thing. And so I came in to audition for Larry, and they were like, you know, your Larry's great. We have a number of people who are good Larrys, you know, that have what we need. We're really having a tough time finding our Shem, you know, we think you'd be good. So I went home and got my, you know, stringy haired wig and put on my best Shemp. Come on, fellas, I didn't mean it. Hey, Mo, you know. And I went in and, you know, realized that to play the life of the Stooges, which this movie was about, and the movie he's referring to is the ABC television movie that Mel Gibson produced because he was a huge fan of the Stooges. And the producers who did Splash, was that the big musical show? Splash?
I'm not sure.
Broadway musical show, whatever. And Smash, those guys that produce all those musicals on TV, the ones that people are doing Wiz and all those guys were the producers on the show too. Marin and I can't remember his name. Don't play that. And but when I came in and did my Shem for them, they were like, yeah, that's great. You really have the heart of them. You really have to, you know, because they could have gone to Vegas and got guys who impersonated them exactly, but they wanted actors that captured what the guys were about, you know, because you needed good actors. Obviously, Michael Chiklis is Curly, and Paul Ben Victor, you know, from The Wire, and from now he's on Vinyl. Where's Soldiers now? Vinyl. And Evan Handler, you know, from Californication, who played Larry. I mean, you know, it was a good group of us, and so we had access to home movies. We had access to sort of whatever family members were still alive to find out about what they were really like. I mean, you know, I found out all about how neurotic Shemp was. You never would have known because he was such a good actor and such a good performer. Maybe he was the best actor out of all of them, and was the one who got to do so many other movies besides the Three Stooges, all the Joe Luca movies and Abbott Costello movies, and that kind of thing. So to find out about these guys so that we could portray them was a lot of fun. Of course, you get a lot of help by somebody making you a nice handmade wig, and spending, we got to spend 3 months in Australia. Right after they kicked off the millennium, literally, we landed in Australia 2 days after they kicked off that huge event where they lit up the bridge and the millennium and all that stuff, and put us up right next to the Opera House in Key, and I got to live there for 3 months and shoot in Australia, which was awesome. And the Olympics were going to come there that year too, so it was a great time. That's their summer, is January, February, March in Sydney, so it was an amazing time to be there. And of course, you're not shooting every day, so you got a lot of time off to go into the Blue Mountains and the outback and go to the cool reef, you know. So it was an amazing experience for me. Definitely one of the Tales from the Crypt, Three Stooges, Reefer Madness. If any of you have ever seen Reefer Madness, if you haven't, you should buy it or rent it. I think you buy it for like $13 on Amazon. I'm not